record. Okay, let's begin. Okay, so we're gonna redo what we did last week, since that was a lot of information and it's something that we should record. So let's begin from the beginning. Okay, so let's do this. So we'll start from here. Did you get my note last week? You did, right?
We stopped at desktop versus shell.
Do you recall anything? Do you recall other things that we talked about? I mean, it was a lot of information that went out, and we didn't record anything of it. So I don't blame you if you don't remember.
I do. Difference between software, hardware, memory process.
Okay.
Can do. And
Okay.
in order to log in, you need the user ID and password, and that makes distinguish like a room pretty much for each user. And
Okay.
And we're trying
Nice.
to get into those user end too.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go over those again today. It'll be like a brief recording of those, so you could come back for reference. So here we go. Since Unix is a multi-user system, so Unix is a operating system. So if we Google Unix, Unix is an operating system which was first developed in 1960, has been under constant development. By operating system, we mean the suite of program, blah, 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 types of operating system. There's many types of operating systems. So you have Unix, Linux, macOS, Novo Nestor, and BSD, Microsoft Windows. So whenever they say like Windows or Unix or Mac OS X, all these things, they're all talking about the same thing. They're all talking about operating system, but every computer needs an operating system, but depends on which manufacturer, they just call it different. But under the hood, they are very different from each other. I mean, but usually they all come from the same parent operating system in history. So there is many types of operating systems. We'll copy paste these. Okay, so what does operating system do? That's a really important question before we move on to the next. Oh wow, whatever. System do. We'll delete these later. Okay, can you answer this? Tell me.
Yeah, operating system pretty much lets you end user to use the computer by letting kernel, by accessing kernel for the end user.
Accessing kernel for the user. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, all right, so let's Google this. Because over the times you're gonna forget and you're always gonna Google. So it's really important when you Google things to understand what you're reading. So operating system has three main functions. Functions meaning task, or three abilities, or three capabilities that you could do. One is to manage or control computers' resources. And what are the resources? Such as central processing unit, which is CPU, memory, disk drive, and printers. So here we go. Let's write that down here. Operating system does three things. One, manage. This is, let's see, manage. I'm so tired. I just came back from walking a dog for, but I needed some conditioning, but I'm pretty tired. Manage the computer's resources.
Do you have another class tonight?
I do. I have to teach the guys around 8, but they could join in and they could wait or something. Here we go. What are resources, right? CPU.
Memory. Hard drives.
Memory. hard drives, and printers. And these are the connected hardwares. Okay, so printers or monitors, keyboards, all the same thing. You could guess anything that is connected to the computer. Okay, external resources. So operating system does three things. So first, we're gonna look at the first. First, it manages computers' resources. What is the resources? Resources are things like CPU, memory, hard drives. As you know, CPU, memory, and hard drive is installed within the computer. Printers, monitors, keyboards, and mouse, they're not part of computer, but it's external things that you could hook up to the computer, and operating system now then has control over those things. And so what is CPU? What do you think CPU is?
That's the memory that lets you run the programs pretty much.
That's really good. So, okay, so operating system does three things. Operating system controls CPU. So what is CPU? So let's first, does CPU do? Let's see. Is an important part of every computer. CPU sends signals to control other part of computer, almost like how a brain controls a body. So that is the brain. So this is like the main guy, right? This is what controls everything, gives instructions. The CPU is an electronic machine that works on a list of computer things to do called instructions. So there you go. That is not the best explanation of things, but we could get this, brain of the computer, we could take that. It is one of the most important. It is part of computer that performs calculation, actions, and runs programs. Now that's really important. So let's put this down. Brain of the computer. Why brain of the computer? Because it performs calculations, actions, and runs programs. So CPU is the brain of the computer. Okay, well, okay, that's cool. So what is the brain of the computer? Like human beings, right? What does our brain do, right? Brain, if we're the computer and we have a brain, brain allows us to speak. It allows us to move our hands, arms. It allows us to move to actions. It basically lets us take actions, right? And it also lets us to think, perform calculations, and all of these different things. So if you think of it that way, if CPU is the brain of the computer, and that CPU basically runs programs, this is the most important things. CPU runs programs. This is the most important thing. Then you could think, you could ask, well, first, let's define what is program in your definition. What do you think it is?
Program? Program is the product that performs for the end users, pretty much.
Yep, that's really good. Product that performs, what you say, for the end user. That's a really good way to put it. So this shows me that you actually understand it, right? Because if you Google it, you're gonna get all these like professional, like program definitions only like computer scientists or people who know computer really well would understand. It's a specific set of ordered operations for a computer to perform. Okay, well, not a lot of people are gonna understand that, right? But basically, Skype is a program. This Evernote is a program. Browser is a program. Microsoft Word is a program. Everything that I install on my computer or has been installed is a program, right? And every single one of these programs, like for Skype, for example, when I install it and I run this program, right, it does something. This program does something, right? And what it does it do? This program is created to make video calls, right? Microsoft Word. What is this program for? For me to write characters of keyboard characters and save them, right? And what does this browser as a program that I install? I could install Google, Chrome, or Safari, Firefox. I could even download any of these type of programs. But what does it do? It makes URL calls and then gives me the website that I need to see. So program is basically like a product that somebody created, and it actually performs for the user. And if the performance, what kind of performance it does, is depends on the nature of the product, right? Just like anything else, if it's apple juice or orange juice, or if it's browser, or if it's Skype, it has different functionalities, right? So when I go, so let's put the Microsoft Word, Evernote, these are all programs that has specific performing mission. Okay, we'll probably fix the head that has specific, that does specific things for a user. Make video calls, visit websites, type characters, etc. Okay, so CPU is the brain of the computer, and CPU runs programs. And what is program? Skype, Microsoft Word, Evernote, which means when you click Skype, like right now, when I click this, or when I click Microsoft Word, something in my computer listens to my click and goes, okay, you want me to open up Skype? Here you go, and opens it. Who is that? CPU. That's why it's very important. That's why it is the brain of the computer, right? Brain is what controls what to execute on the computer. If I create a new file, who does that? CPU. If I run a program, who does that? CPU. Okay, well, this browser is already open, right? Anything that I click in here as a program, right, is only able to be run because CPU is running, is allowing that to happen. For this running program, browser, is working with CPU to also execute operations and commands that allows the browser to go visit websites and all that stuff. But most importantly, it basically executes programs. That's what you need to know. And let's see what other things. Let's see what other things do. CPU sends signals to control other part of computer. Runs programs. Yep, we cover CPU programs and well, it's not written here, but another thing that really is important is CPU works with memory, and that's really important. So basically, CPU works with memory, meaning CPU also basically manipulates and controls, sends instructions to memory. So memory depends on CPU, right? Which is why CPU is the brain of the computer. And so what is memory? Any guess?
It's kind of like I would say, it lets you run multiple apps, programs. It's like a space so that you can shove in like a bunch of programs in a room. And the CPU is the guy that's moving those programs.
That's okay. That's actually a great way to put it. All right. That's good. That's good. So here's the thing. The first, they look like this. These little square pieces. They're memories. They're memories in our computer, right? So think of it as a storage. Memory is a storage, right? Well, if it's storage, you put things in there, right? Like for example, what do you put inside of storage? Like for when we move to somewhere, right? We put our goods, right? Our like, papers or like, sofas or all these furnitures, we put it into some kind of storage, and that's memory. So when CPU or when CPU tells a program to run, and when a program is currently running Skype, usually the program that is running needs some kind of storage, right? Like think of it this way. Think of, like the program. Like let's say I'm running a very heavy some math-oriented program, right? Like maybe like I have a calculator app, right? And I'm running that calculator application, right? And I perform something like 20 plus 50 plus blah blah plus blah blah divided by this, and then like after that plus like this, some crazy arithmetic, calculations, right? Computer, right? Need computer like human beings, right? Like when we are, for example, like doing, math, right? Um, when we're doing math, for example, in our class, right? And teacher tells us to perform all this long arithmetic calculation. I mean, we can't remember it all, right, in our head, right? We need to write them down one by one, and after we calculate this, right? Then after we calculate this, we're gonna also write it down somewhere, right? And then like, it's like basically algebra, and then we like solve the other component, and after we get the answer, then we could get the sum of this and then add it to the other, right? So like just like human beings, computer, when running a program, imagine program, Skype, Microsoft Word, anything, has bunch of arithmetic, or it doesn't logical, all these calculations. It's not like super math, but it still is like very logical, right? And it needs to put all these variables, right? Just like how there's like some values, right? Somewhere for it to retrieve and then like do things. And that's what basically program is. When you run a program inside, it's all these like tick, 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 all these numbers or like words or characters moving around, doing calculations, doing logics, being moved around, right? And just like when we're doing math, when we move all these numbers around, we need to write it down somewhere, get it later, and then do all that. And so program works with memory to store all these values while running the program, so that program, when constantly running, could get it from memory, store it to the memory. It goes, oh, I got like 50, right? Well, I need to store it somewhere so that like I could do some calculation on line 2, and when I'm done with that, I'm gonna go get 50 again, right? So like, okay, so I got 50, I save it to the memory, right? And then I move on to line 2 of the program, and then I run this, and let's say that line is what makes the video call if the program is Skype, right? And it needs that 50 value back, right? Because what if you put down like, I don't know, you're inviting 50 people, right, to the chat room, right? And so the program goes, oh, I need that 50 value again from the memory, and it goes gets it again, right? So memory is a very, very important storage that goes hand in hand with program, right? And so when running a program, it definitely needs a memory. And who controls all of these calculations when running the program, also running the codes, saving it to the memory, fetching it to the from the memory? CPU, right? So memory works with the program to run. Let's see, program uses memory to save values. So when you buy a computer, right, and then, oh, that's not it. Let's see about this Mac. When you buy a computer, right, 16 gigabyte, right? When you have like 16 billions of bytes of memory, it basically means if every byte, think of every byte saves a character. Like a character is about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And this is 1 character, 2 character, 3 character, 4 character, 5 characters, 6 characters, 7 characters right now. And so we'll say it takes 7 bytes, save A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? If every character requires 1 byte to save them. So when we have 16 billion bytes, I think that's billion, or it could be more, but when we have all these bytes, it basically means it could save up to all those billions of values when a program is running. So the more memory you have, the faster your program will run, because it has more storage for it to work with. And so if the program is a very heavy duty program, requires a lot of storage while it's running, right, then you need a lot. Like maybe like a game, for example, you have so many different going on when you're playing a game, right? All the clicks, all the happenings, these are all different numbers and characters moving around constantly when running a program, and it needs a huge storage to save somewhere and then work with that. So that's really important. That's how it fits. Okay, Are you understanding all this so far?
Yeah.
This is really good because for me, I focus a lot on the foundation of things. So before we move on to operating system, which basically we're talking about, which basically does all these things. So as you understand CPU really well, and
Mm-hmm.
you understand what memory does, as you understand what hard drive does, printer does, and how all of these are connected to each other, and then you go, oh, operating system controls it. Then like it'll click to you. So okay, so let's look at hard drive. What do you think hard drive is?
Hard drive is the storage that you can put all these programs before they actually run.
Okay, so memory is a storage, and now you're telling me hard drive is storage, which is very true. Both is a storage that computer uses. So what's the difference between them in your own, if you could guess?
Well, memory is when you're running the program, you need them. A hard drive is actually when you're trying to store them, not using, you can store them inside.
Amazing. That's awesome. That's brilliant. Yeah. Wow. Did you like study on your own, or did you get this from our last session?
Yeah, last session.
Then, bro, good stuff. Okay, this is great. Yeah, that saves us a lot of time. That's exactly. So hard drive is permanent, while memory is temporary. Right? Temporary storage. When a program stops running, then everything it has stored in the memory is no longer, it doesn't need to keep it in there. So it just everything gets flushed. So that when you run other program that could run, then that program will be able to use memory, right? But hard drive is permanent, which means permanent storage, which means whatever program, file, or anything you download to your computer gets saved into this storage called hard drive. That is why when you turn off the computer and turn it back on, all the things you have downloaded that goes inside of hard drive is still available for you to use, hence permanent storage. But memory, for example, I'm running a browser, right? And I all of a sudden, like my computer gets 100% turned off, right? Or or Microsoft is a really good example. When I'm writing on Microsoft, right? But before I save it, where do you think it's being saved to, right? Before I save anything, I'm running the program called Microsoft Word, and I'm like writing all these keyboards, and I'm not saving anything. Then when my computer shuts off, if I didn't save it, then like my paper is gone, right? It's because all of those values, Microsoft Word as a program was using memory as a storage to save all those characters, right? But once you click save on Microsoft Word, all the characters that you have written is now being stored on a hard drive, right? So when you turn off the computer, turn it back on, it gets all those values from hard drive, and then now you could be able to see it. So that's the difference between memory and hard drive. So yeah, so hard drive is more for permanent storage database for your computer stuff that you want permanent to be there. Memory, you're right, is being used by a program. CPU runs programs and it works with memory, which means it runs programs, and it actually also helps program run itself and use memory to use the program. And hard drive is a permanent storage. We talked about that. And then we have hardwares like printers, monitors, keyboards, and mouse. And these are, we don't have to go in. These are all external things that's connected to the computer. And something needs to be able to detect them. And so, for example, now let's say keyboard and our computer is connected. Now, when you write something on your keyboard, something needs to tell your computer that you wrote it so that you could write it to the program. Who does that? CPU. So there you go. So there you go. We finished all this big component. So operating system does three things. First, manage computer's resources, which is CPU, memory, hard drive, and printer. Yep, that's what operating system does. An operating system, it's also important to realize, operating system is also a program. Okay, and then program, just like anything else, Skype, Evernote, Microsoft Word, it's a product that does something, right? And in this case, operating system is a product that does something, which is manage computers' resources. It's a program that controls CPU, memory, hard drive, printers. Which is pretty cool to think about it, right? Because everything is a program then. Okay, so okay, let's go back. Oh no, operating system. Hold on, let me stop sharing for a second. I have to send the email to my other guys. Okay, so my class for the other guys is starting right now.
That be flexible with mine. I'm not in a rush. That they focus on them. That's fine, man.
Yeah, but do you want to be on the call?
I will be on, but I'm not gonna say anything because it's gonna be the other class, and I'm probably gonna be taking showers soon.